Illuminate was really an opportunity for us as a team to play with sampling and sounds in a direction of music that I hadn't been in before, and I hadn't actually thought of going to, but it totally worked. And we had a lot of fun seeing how far we could push it, and there were times we had to bring it back a little bit, but it worked, and I'm over the moon with how it ended and where we got to. Illuminate for me is probably the most exciting track on the EP because it really pushed me musically and production wise. I sat down very intentionally with this song to create a song in a specific style. I came up with the chord sequence that was different, that I'd heard somewhere else and really liked, and tried to create and craft a song in a way that I hadn't done before, which I think resulted in our production team really having some material that could really be played with and taken into some different directions. When I wrote the song, I definitely had an idea of what I wanted to portray in the lyrics. It was really the summation of really learning this lesson about God's light and how we often ask God to allow us to be a light to others, and we ask that people will see the light and they'll find their way and will be a beacon of hope and will be this lighthouse to those people around us. But we forget that in inviting his light into us for others to see, it also is a searchlight into our own hearts, and we have to grapple with the two sides of that light and what the effect is in our lives. And I think often the searchlight effect of God's light in our hearts really can have this highlighting effect where we suddenly see things, just how dusty things have got, and all these hidden shadowy things that we hadn't realized were there are suddenly brought to light, and we have to deal with them in order for that light to be effective when it shines out of us. And that process I walked through of understanding that God's searchlight in my heart was going to be the best light to shine out of my heart was really the inspiration behind this song, and the lyrics hopefully portray that. It's about the illuminating effect that God's light has in us. It's not just that we're this happy, hopeful place. It's actually a place of life from death and beauty from ashes, and in our own lives as well as for those around us. When I wrote the song, I was very intentionally sat down to write a song. It wasn't a processing moment in the same way that some of the other tracks are. It was me wanting to write a song in that style about this subject. So I had never done that before. So I used words and language and chord sequences and crafted a song that I wanted to write, as opposed to using it as a reflective moment to process what I was walking through, which meant it had a very different effect on the music. So the lyrics are much more thought through and intentional and less kind of personal in some ways. I tried to be more poetic, I tried to be more descriptive, and that was reflected in also the music. We were able to play with it more, take it to places that we hadn't thought of going to, and play with production and sampling and sounds that we hadn't thought of doing, because we weren't trying to portray this massively personal moment. It was portraying a musical moment more so than other tracks. The concept behind Illuminate fits into the awakened process, because it is a stage of the awakening that we go through where we have to be willing to grapple with what God's light may highlight in our lives. It's not just about us being a pretty light on the city on top of a hill that can be easily seen. It is the same light that highlights idolatry in our lives and things that we need to deal with that have been sat in our hearts for a long time, and it's something that we have to grapple with. It's not just a pretty light that we get to shine out, it's one that is inward as well, and it's sometimes a difficult thing to wrestle with between the two, but we can't have one without the other.